Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with a mix of Neighbors from Hell and Entitled People's Stories. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Yell at Us for Parking in a Reserved Space? Get Arrested and Evicted. Have you ever dealt with neighbors that pretend to have a reserved parking spot but they actually don't? Well, let's get to it. Last winter, around January, me, my family and close friends were staying at our condo in Vermont for New Year's to celebrate, ski, etc. My dad owns the 8-unit complex our condo is in, and all but one had people up for the holidays. There is a decent amount of area for parking, but when there is a lot of people all there at once, it can get tight. So, one night after returning from the mountains, we parked in the spot closest to the stairs to unload everything easier. Our parking lot is not one with actual spots or anything, because it is just gravel and dirt, so it is really just eyed out and first come first serve. A few hours later, my brother went to the car to get something from the car, where there was a cardboard sign left on the car. The sign read, "Reserved parking for Unit 8, handicapped," on both sides. And yes, they forgot the N in handicapped on both sides as well. Like I said, there is no specific spots for anyone. Unit 8 was one of the smaller units on the ground level, about half the size of the rest. The couple that rented there was sketchy, to say the least. They had to be in their mid-20s, but we never saw them much and didn't know too much about them. Let's just call them Rick and Tara, our de facto neighbors. Another 20 minutes later and I go down to the car to get some forgotten gloves. As I unlock the car, the lights alert them someone is at the car, and through the window Rick starts yelling at me, telling me I have to move the car by the morning or they would have it towed. At this point I can also realize that Rick is off of something, so I subsequently ignore him, grab my things and head back up. I get into the condo and explain to my dad the experience I just had with Rick. At this point he had had enough and decided he was gonna go down there himself to handle things himself. So he goes down there to talk to him. My dad was really the only person that had met them before, but it was briefly during the leasing of their unit. He knocks on the door and it is about 30 seconds until Rick angrily answers the door. He crankily asks, "What do you want?" And my dad politely explains that no spots are reserved and that it is first come first serve. Rick instantly starts freaking out, saying that it is a handicapped spot and that they are gonna call the landlord. They had little experience with my dad when they leased the place about a year before, and in that time he was diagnosed with cancer and lost a lot of weight. With that, his appearance changed drastically. Rick did not realize he was speaking to the landlord and kept his rant going. As my dad was going to lay it out for him, he noticed on a table in the living area that there was a pipe of sorts. Paired with the behavior and appearance of Rick at the time, my dad concluded it was a pipe of sorts for drugs. He backpedaled out of the conversation and returned back up to our condo. When he got back in, he called the cops explaining the situation and what he saw. 30 minutes later, the cops pull up and start talking to Rick. Going off what my dad told them about the pipe, one of the cops noticed it, but this time out in the open with a bag next to it. At that point it was revealed that they were smoking crack and they were both arrested. Along with that, my dad also evicted them from the property for violating terms, obviously. We ended up renovating the whole place afterwards because who knows how long they had been smoking that inside. The upside is that the cardboard sign still hangs in the living room and gives us a laugh each time we pass. Edit: I see a lot of fuss over the handicapped spot, and let me confirm that neither Rick nor Tara had any disability or handicap. And sorry for the spelling, but throughout the story I meant to be saying they were renters, not buyers. Also, I see a bunch of you quite mad about how we handled things. If you're a landlord and someone is smoking crack in the unit you are renting out to them, then most likely you are going to have them removed. I feel for the addicts that have corrected themselves, and I hope the best for Rick and Tara. Also, they are not locked up, they were in for an overnight, so please save my inbox to horrors. And guys, I'm not exactly sure what the OP is talking about because I could not see any replies in the comments that indicated that someone was unhappy about these people getting evicted, because obviously, as OP correctly said, as a landlord you would not want people smoking crack in the unit that you rent out to them. Does anybody disagree with that? Let me know in the comments. And by the way, while you're at it, I would really appreciate if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support. And the next one is titled, Parents tried to sabotage my relationship and ruin my life, ends with them having a Thanksgiving from hell. My parents have long been a pain in my ass, but for now I am going to mainly focus on my Thanksgiving from hell and the incidents leading to it. A few years ago I met my future wife on an online dating app. Well, we hit it off fairly quickly and the relationship progressed really fast. I was in my late 20s and she turned 30 soon after we met. We both had a good idea of what we were looking for in a partner and had no interest in games. I met her parents within a few months, though I was much more reluctant to introduce her to mine for reasons that will become apparent. The problems began almost as soon as I told my folks I was dating someone. This was about 6 months into my relationship, as I was reluctant to inform my parents due to the fact that they had tried to call the cops on my last long-term girlfriend. Might share that story later. Myself, my brother and my parents were having dinner at a local Mexican restaurant and making small talk. They started asking me questions about my girlfriend, mostly the usual innocent questions, but at some point I let slip that she was Jewish. Boy, was that a mistake. My parents are hyper-conservative Christians. For years they had been trying to get me to date a girl from our church, a good friend of mine, but we were never really a match to be a couple, and always expected I would marry someone who was at least Christian. I am Christian by belief to this day, but I rarely have interactions with the church due to some incidents with the priest. Not that kind of incident, but yet another good story for later. My dad, without missing a beat, told me I should break up with her. He told me that I was going to marry a Christian girl. And that was that. I was pissed and I don't remember the full extent of the rest of that conversation, but I told him that I was not breaking up with her, and the rest of the dinner was tense. The next couple of months went about as smooth as you might imagine, but I thought I was slowly wearing them down. At some point they invited my girlfriend and I over for dinner, and I thought there was finally some progress being made. But nope, they got my brother to distract me in another room of the house while they sat down with my girlfriend and explained why they did not think she was good for me. They straight up told my girlfriend that she needed to break up with me because I was going to marry a good Christian girl. They even offered to pay her if she ended up leaving me. My girlfriend politely told them off and we left. Fast forward to November, my family is really big on the holidays, as I know many are, and we had very large extended family gatherings for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think in my entire life we had only missed one of these events. I wanted to go and take my girlfriend to meet the rest of the family. My parents may have had their heads up their butts, but the rest of my family has always seemed great to me. The event would be at my grandma's house this year, my mom's mother, with a small gathering for my dad's side the day before Thanksgiving. I talked to my grandma, who was fine with me bringing my girlfriend up so long as she slept in a separate room. No problem, no way am I going to screw my girlfriend in my grandma's house anyway. I decided to ask my mother as well, not that I needed her permission, but I am an optimist and I hoped that she would be on board, and maybe seeing my girlfriend having positive interactions with the family would help the situation. My mother was resistant at first, mainly because she was upset that we were getting an apartment together and did not want to encourage the relationship further, but eventually agreed. I should also note, I set some very clear boundaries with my mother about conversation for this trip, which she brushed off as unnecessary, but I had my guard up nonetheless. We head out to my grandma's city, and frankly the first day is nothing but pleasant. My girlfriend gets to meet both of my grandmas, some of my cousins and other extended family. We are having a fairly good time and I think things are actually going to go well until my girlfriend and I decide to go to a movie. We are going to go see Arrival in theaters. My brother, who is 5 years older than me, wants to tag along. He rode up with my parents, my girlfriend and I came up in my car, so my brother has to ride with us to the movie. The three of us sit together and my girlfriend and I snuggle through most of it. It was a fantastic movie and the ending made me cry. My girlfriend helped me as the credits rolled, but I think all the cuddles had not sat well with my brother, who was single. He got up and I will never forget what he said or the malicious tone in which he said it.
"Too bad mom and dad will never let you marry her, because she's a Jew."
My brother jogged out of the theater before either my girlfriend or I could muster up a response. We sat there a bit dumbfounded for a few minutes. Eventually the house lights went up in the theater and we tried to formulate a plan. I have no idea where my brother is at this point, but he cannot go too far considering we drove him. I decided to call my folks considering I have no clue where he is and really don't want to talk to him at this point. To my surprise, my mother sides with me and tells me it is alright if we just leave him, he can get an Uber back. We half consider it, but we find him on the way out and my girlfriend, used to dealing with a-holes and children in her job, completely cows him with words. He silently rides back with us, we drop him off and my girlfriend and I go have dinner by ourselves. We debate just leaving but decide my parents themselves have not crossed any of the boundaries we set, so we will stay for now. It would not take them long though. That same evening I was getting ready to watch some Netflix in bed with my girlfriend. Nothing untoward was going to happen, she just likes falling asleep to the Great British Baking Show. As I walk past the living room, my mother calls me in and complains that I'm not spending enough time with my family. I am a bit angry at this common manipulation tactic from my mom, but go chat for my grandma's sake. My mom tries to tell me that my grandma is upset with me that my girlfriend and I are planning on moving in together before we are married. I decide that my grandma does not need my mother being a mouthpiece for her, so I sit on the couch in between the two of them and face my grandma. My grandma and I chat. She is a bit worried about me moving in with a woman while unwed, but we calmly discuss the situation. She does not back down on her objection, but eventually concedes that it is my life, she likes my girlfriend and she is happy for us regardless. This entire time, my mother has been constantly trying to butt in on the conversation, but I am physically putting myself between her and my grandma, which is just pissing my mother off. Eventually my father sees what is going on and also butts in. Apparently he cannot contain himself anymore and just goes off about everything he sees wrong with my relationship. I cannot remember his exact gripes, I likely tuned them out, but I did call him a coward for talking crap behind my girlfriend's back. She was in her room still waiting on me. This really pissed him off and he stormed out to fetch my girlfriend. He came back with my girlfriend in tow and proceeded to tear into her in front of me, my mom and my grandma, who was mortified that this was happening in her house.
"My son will be Christian, his wife will be Christian, his children will be baptized in our church,"
he was nearly screaming at her. He also basically accused her of trying to steal my inheritance by getting knocked up by me and added some very inappropriate commentary about how he knew my girlfriend was getting older and her biological clock was ticking down. Through the whole tirade, my wife stood there quietly. Like I said, she is used to dealing with a-holes and she is tough as nails. Letting him finish up and run out of energy, my girlfriend turned to my grandma and thanked her for her hospitality before turning back to my father and asking, "Why did you even invite us here if you were going to act like this?" My dad yelled again,
"We did not invite you here, we never would have invited you here."
At this point I gleefully pulled out my phone and showed him the conversation I had with my mom, where she agreed for my girlfriend to be here. My dad could not find words but just glared at his wife. At this point I told them that my girlfriend and I were leaving. It was near 11 PM, but we packed up my car and left for our hometown. My dad got in one more word before we left, saying,
"You two better have broken up by the time you get home. Have a long hard thought about your future."
To which I just laughed as we got in the car. My girlfriend and I drove home on pure adrenaline. We alternated between angry, humiliation and frustration at the absurdity of the whole thing. This story does have something of a happy ending though. In the days that followed we got a lot of calls and messages of support from my relatives who I had not told about the incident. Turns out my brother had made some vague social media post about how sad he was for me and asking everyone to pray for my brother. Apparently many of my relatives took this to mean I had been hurt and were all calling my mother and father. When my parents were forced to explain the situation, all of my relatives sided with my girlfriend and I. In the months that followed, this incident caused my grandma to think back on how she had acted with her own daughters. Turns out that my mom had been the only marriage out of the 3 daughters my grandma had approved of. This incident made my grandma realize that she had acted poorly with her other daughters, and she came to them to finally mend those old wounds. I had no idea, as it always seemed like my grandma and her daughters had a great relationship, but these were old wounds that had just scabbed rather than really healed. Overall, my family got closer because of this. In addition, my father has had a dramatic change over the course of the intervening years, where once it seemed like we were not going to invite my parents to our wedding, my dad ended up actually being the happiest person there when my girlfriend, now wife, and I tied the knot. This has been helped by the fact that he discovered some underlying mental health issues after that Thanksgiving, and the meds he is using are truly helping him. He has started acting like the father I loved when I was a kid. My mother is still a problem, and boy do I have more stories, but she is mostly behaving because she knows my wife and I can and will block her from seeing her future grandchildren. First, I don't think my parents' issue was really about my wife being Jewish in particular, so much as it was about her not being from our church. I think they would have had an issue even if she was Protestant and would have insisted she join our church instead of whatever church she was in. My parents certainly have some racial bias, they are probably not even aware of themselves, but I don't think that was really what was at play in this instance. Second, yeah, my dad was probably the worst person in this story, but I cannot understand just how much he has changed since then. He was nearly jumping up and down with joy when my wife and I said we were going to start trying for a kid after moving from our apartment to our new house. On the other hand, my mother has not changed, only been cowed by the fact that she cannot control my wife and I. Third, my brother likely has the same underlying mental health issues my father does, based on the behaviors I have seen, but unlike my father, he refuses to look into it further. And guys, please let me know in the comments what you think about this story, because indeed, at first I was also surprised why Christians would have something against Jews, which does not really make sense in my opinion. Anyway, in my opinion, this story nicely shows that people, at least some of them, can indeed change for the better, while others simply stay the same. And Ripe Star, sadly, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest you to check out my binge watch playlist, which you will see at the corner of the screen. If you click on that playlist, you will find hours of ripe content, and also by watching this playlist you will support my channel. This is due to the fact that YouTube likes when users stay on one person's channel and watch several videos in a row. In addition, you can also check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more exclusive Reddit videos. Prices start at $3 a month, but please don't feel pressured into giving me money or anything, it is already enough for you to watch my videos daily. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.